know I'm speaking for everyone in the Crowdsource the Truth audience when I welcome back my next guest, Larry Nichols. Larry, everybody's delighted to know that you are back out of the hospital and hopefully on the mend once again.
Well, for a little bit anyway. Don't know how long.
Yeah, it's been a rough time. I want to make sure people know Larry's really been struggling with his health and he really needs our help now. I hope that viewers, particularly people who are watching every week when Larry's on, I hope that people will go to nicholslive.com and access the donate tab on Larry's webpage. If you click on that, it's going to give you all the information that you need to become a financial supporter of Larry. You can go to paypal.com and using his PayPal address, nicholslive@aol.com, you can send Larry some money, even $5, $10, $20, just whatever amount people can manage, hopefully an amount that's not disruptive to you personally. Even just a few bucks, it's going to make a difference to Larry. Literally thousands of people watch these shows each week. And if everybody just sent $5, it would help Larry go a long way towards paying some of these co-pays and these medical bills that he's been facing. So I hope that our audience will do that for you, Larry. I really appreciate the insight and the information that you bring us. We wanted to talk today about what you anticipate is going to be a rope-a-dope technique that President Trump will use in the campaign moving forward. What do you mean by this, Larry?
Well, first off, let me say this relative to the medical stuff. I hope this once and for all puts to bed, the people occasion that have harassed you and harassed me and some of your listeners, claiming that I really wasn't sick, that it was all just bogus. Well, I guess after 7 months in the hospital and on a, wherever they call that vent machine, that ought to lay that to rest. It was serious. It is serious. And it's tough. Now, what do I mean by rope-a-dope? One of the oldest tricks in the book that we used with Bill Clinton, and we used it quite often, we called it rope-a-dope. Now, what was that? Well, by design, we would always want Bill to be trailing in the polls. Trailing, behind. And then all of a sudden, in the last week and a half, 2 weeks before the election, we had introduced new polling data showing him pulling ahead. And oh Lord, when that happened, here's what mechanically takes place. You've got a lot of people that they don't follow politics as you and I and your audience.
Right.
And so what they do is they just want to know that when they cast their vote, they want to be able to go to the water cooler and say they voted for the winner.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when they see that momentum shift, when it looked like Clinton was finally coming in and making it across the finish line a week and a half early or 2 weeks early, that's who they vote for. So we got the momentum. Now, what Trump is doing is a variation of the same thing. Number one, he knows that the media, the mainstream, is going to do everything in its power to slam him.
Yeah.
President Trump and his campaign people know that the polling information coming in now, they know it's bogus.
Yeah.
They have internals that give a better representation. They know this stuff is bogus, but they also know there's nothing they can do about it.
Yeah.
So what do? In that situation, you use it. You use it on them. And so what's going to happen is President Trump is enjoying getting lambasted in the polling, and it's looking bad, as the mainstream media will portray to the people out there. But the truth is, everybody's waiting for an October surprise. On the Biden side, they're hoping this book that's out by Jigger Woodward
Oh,
They're
yeah.
kind of hoping that might be the October surprise. Well, it's not going to be.
No. Kind of fizzled, didn't it, Larry?
Yeah, it did. Yes, it did, because it's dealing with stuff too cerebral for most
Right.
people that are just tacitly watching the presidential election.
It's kind of
And then there's
confusing.
another thing going. Yeah, there's another thing going on that you and I've talked about it. I don't think there's anybody else in the country's talked about it other than you and I in this audience. Normally, an election is 40-40-20. That's the formula for most elections. 40% love you, 40% hate you, 20% don't care, and they're the ones called the swing voters. And the person that gets the most of the swing voters or undecided voters, they're the ones that usually win the race, right? That's
Yes.
the formula for life in politics. This election's different. This is a 50-50. And if you don't believe me, folks, and you have no reason to believe me, get your pencil and paper, a notebook and paper, and go to a mall near you. Start at one end, walk to the other, and ask a very simple question. Are you for or against Trump? Now, what's going to happen when you do that simple acid test of a poll, although it's not scientific, but it's quite revealing, you're going to find that as you go from one end of the mall to the other, you're going to find most people have made a determination where they stand.
Mm-hmm.
There's not going to be many people undecided.
Right.
So you see, everybody's kind of caught in a quandary here, except for Trump. Trump is a marketer. Trump understands marketing. You know, that was always my strong suit in politics, Mr. Jack, Mr. Witt, and Bill. You know, it's one thing to understand, it's one thing to understand politics, but very few people in the world of political consultants, et cetera, very few people in that world understand marketing. You know, when you look at campaigns, Jason, it should shock everybody. Go look at everybody's campaign. And you know what you're going to find? You're going to find here's the candidate, old, new, older, whatever. Mm-hmm. But look at the campaign staff. It's always made up of young people. Young people.
Yeah.
And of course, these young people, of course, don't have the life experiences, obviously, to be expert in the world of marketing, and certainly not in the world of correlating or conjoining marketing with politics.
Mm-hmm.
Trump does. Trump understands it. And that's why we titled today's program Rope-a-Dope. The October surprise that everybody's waiting for coming from Trump, he's already done. It's already done. It's laid out there. It's right there now.
What is it?
Because, what? Right before the election, Trump's going to pull ahead in these polls. He's going to pull ahead. And it's going to look like the most phenomenal political shift of the wind that anybody's ever seen. But it's not. It's been planned. Now, Biden, you know, everybody's sitting there saying, well, and I do disagree with the president on this. You know, he said they take Biden and put him in the basement or whatever. That's not what Biden's doing. Biden, I assure you, and I've done this a bunch of times, Biden is in probably the most intensive course of debate training that anybody's ever gone through. They would rather forego Biden being out on the stump, speaking to all of 6 or 7 people. They'd rather forego that, but to be able to have him in intensive training for this debate coming up. Because if he doesn't get intensive training, Trump will walk all over him, and he knows it.
Won't he do that anyway, Larry? I mean, you know, you could train Joe Biden to run a, marathon, and he's not going to win.
No. What typically will happen, and here again, this is that correlation between politics, marketing, old politics, new marketing, new politics, new formulas, equations, etc. Biden, on a normal day, being 50 years in the racket, right? 50 years. He ought to be able to walk on the stage with most anybody, certainly a novice, say like a Donald Trump, minimum be able to hold his own. He may not come out a big time winner, but he could certainly hold his own. Just experience will tell you that. I mean, think about it, Jason. You can't pick a subject that government has dealt with in the past 50 years that Biden wasn't a part of or knows intimate details about. So therefore, he should be able to put up an adequate defense or representation.
Good point.
But here we go. Now, Trump is bracketing. In the military, we call it bracketing, you know, when you're calling in artillery, or nowadays they do it with GPS, but in the old days, you bracketed in the rounds. You'd have the artillery fire one and go long, you'd have them fire just fire, you fire another one to go short. Yep. And then when you had the overshoot and the undershoot, now you got them bracketed, and then you poured the cold firing for effect.
We do the same thing in photography, Larry, with exposure. You find your exposure, you go a little over and a little under, and you hit it.
Well, that's what's going on. And Trump is bracketing Biden. He's making Biden out to be senile.
Uh-huh.
Now, I don't know how far he's got to go to make Biden look like he's senile, because it seems like he probably is getting there pretty quick.
Yep.
But he's still Trump. If you notice what Trump does, Trump attacks. He's a counterpuncher, but he's also an attack dog. So he's got the thing to use on Biden that he needs. And he's playing Biden going into this intensive debate training. He's making it out like they're hiding Biden because he'll look stupid because he always says screwed up stuff.
Yeah.
But what he's actually doing is he's bracketing. He's bracketing Biden into a box. And then by using rope-a-dope, he will end up, if you'll go back to 2016, how did that miracle happen? Hillary was so far ahead, it was ridiculous. They'd already got out the champagne and the balloons.
Yeah.
No way. No way. But what nobody paid attention to was this outsider named Donald Trump, who understood marketing more so than he did politics. And he marketed himself right in there so that Hillary walked in to the rope-a-dope herself. You know, the reason Hillary lost to Trump, the reason Hillary's in the penalty box with the DNC to this day, is because she wouldn't use our system. She always thought it was ridiculous for Bill to do stuff I said because I was a hayseed and they were brilliant. How dare I, how dare I to recommend things to Bill and Hillary? I mean, Jesus, these people are the most brilliant people in the world, right?
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Well, she didn't play by the rules. She didn't play by the rules. She did not use the rope-a-dope on Trump. She played it all the way that she was winning all the way, all the way, all the way, all the way. And then guess what? Night of the election, it didn't turn out that way, did it?
No.
Same's going to happen to Biden. The October surprise is there. Now, in addition to that, you'll notice today Trump, along with Netanyahu and Bahrain, they're signing peace deals. Never before ever even dreamt of.
Yeah.
With Israel. But they're signing them today. And there's probably 4 or 5 more countries fixing to join in on this thing with them before it's over. Mm-hmm. So you're going to see this materialize. This is all going to materialize. Then he's got the economy that's going to perk up. I promise you. the economy is going to perk up. Now, the institutional buyers that hate Trump's guts, they're going to do everything they can right before the election to flush down the market. But it's too late. They played that hand too late.
Yeah.
So now what you're going to run into is if we can simply, and I make this offer to all your audience, if we can simply get everybody that hears my voice right now, what's left of it, everybody that likes Trump, maybe not his personality, maybe not his little nuances, but what he's actually done for the country.
Yeah.
If everybody that likes what Trump has done will get off their butt and go vote. Go vote. Trump wins. Now, they're playing a dead hand. You see, always in campaigns, especially those of national stature, everybody gets all fired up and they go around and they get all these young Democrats, all these young people. And that's well and good. And they'll come out on a Tuesday night to hear somebody speak. They might even go to a rally every once in a while. But here's what anybody that understands politics, now remember the merging of politics and marketing, right? Anybody that understands marketing and politics knows that, yeah, they'll come out and go to rallies and scream and holler and have a big time, but they don't go vote.
Yeah.
We used to go to every fraternity in the state of Arkansas, and we would provide them with kegs of beer for beer parties.
You've mentioned that.
Well, when? Yeah, election day.
Yeah.
These fraternities or sororities have these keg parties, and guess what? They don't go vote. Not that they were going to go vote anyway, but we just wanted the insurance.
Right. It's interesting, Larry, because it's... sorry.
Well, Trump's base is made up of a mature audience and an audience that is scared to death of the future. Scared to death of the future. Did you know Joe Biden, in his entire acceptance speech during the DNC thing, he and what's her name, his vice presidential candidate, they never mentioned one time law enforcement, law and order.
Yeah.
Never mentioned it. What kind of technical blunder could you possibly, or who could you possibly be listening to that would write such a speech? Certainly at such a time as we have now. Now, every time some of these Antifa, BLM people go and pop off another law enforcement officer or create another protest or disaster, it goes against Biden. It goes against the DNC.
You know, Larry,
the
it's
young
interesting.
People,
Sorry. Well, I was going to say,
well,
it's
the young
interesting.
people, they're not afraid of that.
Yeah. But it was strange to me when you first brought up that beer party thing, because it seems like just like micromanaging almost, you know. I think just as a person thinking about how a political campaign goes, you're thinking about stuff in terms of billions of dollars and these gigantic national, you know, whatever kind of thing. And then now, like buying beer for a dorm, you're dealing with such a small number of people, but it does seem like they do a lot of these little things, right?
Right. I mean, look, victory is not determined by whichever side does the greatest, biggest thing. They're not, Jason. I don't guess they ever have been. They're not. What determines victory or loss is which side deals with the little things. The little things. You know, we were asked all the time, how could 10 special forces people go into a country like, let's just take Nicaragua, Afghanistan, wherever, we're up against 500,000 commies, right?
Yeah.
How on earth could 10 people 10 regular men, I mean, maybe a little more trained, but still men, go in and take on $500,000 and win. Well, I'll tell you how you don't do it. You don't say, okay, guys, we're going to all meet here Saturday morning, and we're going to attack the entire enemy base camp of 50,000 with our sole 10 people.
Just
we're not
kill
going to
you
do
right
that.
away. Yeah.
Yep. What you do is you use what I studied in War College, which was Geronimo's method. You know, you wait and you wait and you watch and you circle and you circle. And eventually different patrols will have to leave the base camp to go out and do something. You know, maybe it's to get wood, maybe it's to get water, maybe it's to get food, who knows. But then you take a small element that breaks away from the big base and you attack them and you kill them all. Now, you won't do that many times until, guess what? The enemy's not going to be able to find many people willing to go out on these small enclaves and do that kind of stuff. They don't want to die. But they know if they go out with the smaller group, they're going to get hit.
Huh.
Pretty soon you've broken their back.
Not to digress, but you bring up Geronimo. Why did they, I think Prescott Bush and his buddies at the Skull and Bones were accused of stealing Geronimo's skull?
Well, they might have. I have no reason to know why they would.
Right.
I mean, of course, he was an incredible figure in our history, our Western history, certainly. But Skull and Bones, why they would want it other than some satanic goofball reason that they might want it, I couldn't tell you. I'm not into that stuff.
Sure.
But his tactics brought an entire army, a vastly superior army, to its knees. And, you know, and nobody was more surprised than the American army when they finally got him to surrender and they saw how small a group he had. Nobody knew.
How did they get him
all
to
of
surrender?
These things, well, they starved him out.
Huh.
Geronimo had gone and he had played the middle of the road, and he would go over and he would strike into Mexico, and the Mexicans would be mad at him. Then he'd come across and then strike us. We'd be mad at him. And eventually he had nowhere to go to hide. And his people, his group got so small that, you know, I don't know what to tell you.
They got him.
He had to give up. He didn't have a choice.
But it makes sense. It's asymmetric warfare. A smaller, less capable force needs to be creative and rely on ingenuity.
Yep. And remember, a smaller, more versatile, mobile force is worth 10 times its size on the battlefield. Big armies have to have big supply lines. Well, when you got to have a big supply line, now all of a sudden you got to have a massive force to keep that supply line protected, right?
Right.
And pretty soon you end up, Jason, you end up utilizing your manpower, your fighting power, all in the interest of just protecting, you know, a supply line or being able to keep your people fed, whatever. It's a total waste. It's a total waste of people.
Yeah.
And now think about all these things that go through a sick person's mind like mine. And I have to bring all of these factors into play. And if you do, if you know what you're doing and you play it right, you can win. And remember, the most, how do I want to say this? The most gullible person on earth is a politician. I can take 100 people, have each one of them call the local office And then the Washington office, 100 people call 10 times each to each office.
Yeah.
And you will literally scare the politician into his corner. He will swear that it's 10 million people. I've done it over and over and over. They're paranoid. And they're skittish.
Well, it's interesting what you're describing there, Larry, because these are the tried and true techniques, but, now you were talking before about these young people that are on Biden's staff. Obviously, all this communication is happening through social media. It's a whole, not even just a tool, it's like a whole new medium that wasn't available to you when you were campaigning and working for the Clintons.
That's right. And you know what? It don't mean a thing. It don't mean a thing. Because no matter whether we reach the young people through this new medium, social media, whether we meet them through cartoons, it don't matter. If you know what you're doing, you know that they're going to vote anyway.
Right. But it does create a whole litany of new tactics and techniques that can be used, technology to target people and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. I mean, you got a bunch of people, bunch of brainiacs sitting around a table, and they've all got this figured out, right? Mm-hmm. And then an old war dog like somebody like me comes in. Yeah, that sounds great. You guys really come up with some really clever ideas. And good heavens, what y'all can do with the mastery of technology is so far above my head, I don't even know what on earth you're even talking about, right?
Yeah.
Don't mean I won't beat them to death. There's one thing you got to learn, guys. Never forget this. You never want to be the smartest person in a room. You know who always wins in a room, in a meeting? Do you know who always wins?
Who?
The dumbest. The dumbest.
Why is that?
I always prided myself. Well, I always prided myself. I couldn't outsmart anybody, but I could outdumb the best of them.
What do you mean outdumb
Well, think
them?
about it. Well, look, for you to explain to me how 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 equals 995,000.6.7. By the time you get me to where supposedly I understand it, all of the smart people in the room have gotten bored and have bugged out. Maybe not physically, but mentally they've bugged out, which is the problem, as you know, with the school system. Right. You've got school systems that are set up. Well, the classroom is set up so that the dumbest in the class has to be dealt with in such a way that they get taken care of. Well, that's what hurts the more intelligent ones. They get bored. That's why the president's educational system can't possibly work.
Well, I mean, school is happening online. It's pretty bad, don't you think, Larry?
Well, of course. And then that's going to blow open another can of worms. We spend a bazillion dollars per student, federal money, state money, local money, educating and getting all these teachers, right?
Yeah.
And then along comes this virus, and all of a sudden people are forced to homeschool. Now, these are people that are homeschooling that have no teaching experience. Many don't even have a high school degree. But day in, day out, homeschooled, home-educated students outdo classroom students on SAT. Day in and day out. How's that possible?
Well, maybe because their parents care more about them learning than a teacher does. But I think the problem with homeschooling in 2020 is that there's a lot of people who are being homeschooled who maybe didn't plan on it, and they're being homeschooled by a computer rather than a parent.
Well, and that's going to be the demise of our nation if we're not careful. Yeah. We have simply taken supposedly the smartest generation, whatever you call them. What do you call this new generation?
Millennials?
Millennials. They're the smartest, right? Well, actually, what we've done is we've replaced their brain with that box we call the computer.
Right.
You see, now they don't have to learn anything. They just need to know where to go to find whatever it is they need to find at the moment they need to find it.
Right.
That's not learning. It's not learning. And that will be our demise.
Yeah, they also have no critical thinking skills. And I mean, but this happened before millennials. I mean, I speak to people my age who are basically stupid as can be.
Yeah. But not as broad based as you do within the millennials.
Yeah.
I mean, the millennials take great pride, Jason, at how smart they are.
You know, Larry,
they got to be smart.
Yeah. We've got Manny with us in the comments here saying that school starts tomorrow in New York City, and his kid is already screaming in frustration over the problems with the computer, just, you know, getting the Zoom to work.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, you just had to show up at the classroom and listen.
That's right. You know, when I went to school, I don't know how many of y'all can remember this, but when I went to school, a big deal for us was the first group of electronic typewriters.
Wow.
Most of them were the old manual typewriters. But I think when I was old, when I was a senior and you had to take typing, we had 5 electric typewriters in the whole school. That was a big deal. You couldn't even take, remember the calculators you could hold in your hands? You couldn't take those into the classroom.
Yeah, because it was cheating on the math test.
Yeah, Lord, yes. I mean, if you didn't know how to do long division, you were in trouble, buddy.
Times have changed, Larry. I gotta tell you.
All of these things, Jason, I tell you and your audience, hang with me, and I will show you things that you will probably shake your head and say, maybe it just don't make sense. But if you will think about it, and if you'll work it out to its least common denominator, you'll find it does make quite a lot of sense.
Right.
And it always works. Now, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
Right.
How come I won all the elections and so many people that were smarter than I was, they always got their ass kicked?
Well, I think there's, you know, traditional measures of what people think is smart. And I mean, you know, I've always been fascinated by that. Wisdom versus education versus intelligence. They're 3 different things that a lot of people aren't necessarily able to distinguish. You know, Larry, we've got a great comment here from Robert Justice on YouTube. He's saying that the new generation of kids are going to be the Zoomers. That's a good name for them because they're learning everything from Zoom.
Yeah. Yeah, well, they're going to be a new class, a new variation.
Yeah. Now, real quick, Larry, I just want to make a point that somebody was confused about. We've selected an image today, which is the actual rope-a-dope. It's a boxing move that I guess Muhammad Ali either developed or made famous, where he would basically wear out his opponent by drawing punches that he would avoid. And I apologize to the viewer who thought this was a depiction of Donald Trump being knocked out, but he's smiling in a taunting manner as Joe Biden appears frustrated, throwing blank punches. So that's what I'm trying to illustrate with today's, cartoon there. And also, I wanted people to really make their way over to nicholslive.com. Larry's sharing stuff with us. This is, as he's saying, you know, he's being modest because he's a lot smarter than he wants to let on. And again, we're dealing with wisdom right here. This is knowledge that is earned over years in the trenches, and you're not going to hear this on Fox. You're not going to hear this on MSNBC. If you're watching the show, Larry, we've got hundreds of people watching right now. And if you're watching the show, if people go to nicholslive.com and click on the donate tab, you can use Larry's PayPal address, which is nicholslive@aol.com. And now is really the time we should help Larry. He's got a lot of medical bills. We want to help him out, and really for a small amount to any individual. If every person watching now sent $5, it would really help Larry with his medical bills. And it's a small amount when you consider how much information and enjoyment you've gotten from listening to Larry. So, Larry, I don't know if you heard about this, but the comedian and talk show host, famous podcaster Joe Rogan, he suggested that he would host a debate between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, and Trump enthusiastically responded saying that he would do it. I don't know if we've heard from Joe Biden yet. What do you think about that?
Biden won't do it.
Yeah.
Joe Biden will not go into a debate without it being loaded to his favor. He's not going to do it. Here again, that's 50 years of being a politician. He knows better. Trump is streetwise. You're not going to throw Trump out there with any host, any questioner, any kind of situation that he cannot handle himself on his feet. That's not the case with Biden. Biden has to have a teleprompter. He either has to have a teleprompter or he has to have had the answers drilled into him so many times to where they're automatic. Mm-hmm.
CNN has got a opinion piece here that says a Joe Rogan debate between Trump and Biden is just what we need. I'm not sure. I would like it, but I don't think that Joe Biden could stand up in that kind of environment. It's very
and
unscripted.
Then you've got another problem. Nobody's going to watch that stupid debate.
Well, Joe Rogan has a lot of viewers.
He may have a lot of viewers, but they're not going to watch a debate. They're not.
No.
Watch the numbers drop when it's debate night. Watch how the Democrats are going to play debate night. They will always schedule debates at a time when there's correspondingly it's World Series, or
right.
Monday Night Football or whatever. Just anything they can to knock the numbers down, which sounds totally opposite of what you would think they would do, right? You'd think they'd want everybody watching. Mm-hmm. They don't. Not when it's a rigged campaign. Look, this is all stuff. Well, I'd like to see a true anything anymore. But it's hard to find.
That's true.
And then, Jason, how many years have you and I tried to warn, me especially, I've tried to warn thanks to you and your program, that our country's going to hell. We're coming up to the most critical election in the history of this nation. We're dealing with the very soul of this nation. Well, who could have ever dreamed that there would be a guy walk up, shoot two cops, take off running, and then when the police tried to take, and the ambulance tried to take the two wounded officers who were fighting for their life to the hospital, Antifa, BLM, and all these people blocked off the emergency room where they couldn't even get them in, screaming they wanted them to die.
Unbelievable. I think we need to mention also, Larry, we should mention that, Kamala Harris was, funding, campaigns to bail people out of jail. And then here are people who are aligned with that killing the cops.
That's right. And then the guy that shot the cops, I guess I'm the only one that noticed this. You remember the video where he walks up, shoots the two police officers, and then takes off running? Mm-hmm. Now, what did I see? What did you see when he took off running?
I just saw a bunch of people standing around, video recording it on their phones. I couldn't
What about
the
guy running? What did you notice about the guy running?
I can't say I noticed much.
I noticed a lot. He's Asian, Oriental.
But they're saying the suspect is male, black.
Number one, look at the length of his legs, and look how he runs and waddles. He looks like a kid. He may end up being black. I'm not saying he's not, but I'm just telling you what I see. If I had to start from scratch, I would say I want every Asian Oriental person that's trying to get in these different Korean and all these different Asian gangs. Because this was obviously, to me, it looked like something he had to do to get accepted into the gang.
Gang initiation. Wow. Whoa.
But look how he runs. Look how he runs.
I tell you, it's brutal crime, Larry. I mean, it's just brazen. Walk right up to the police. I mean, this is in addition to the murder of a police officer, this is an incredibly dangerous crime because it's setting the mood for that neighborhood where now this has been done. It's not like the person was arrested right away. Whoever is a criminal wanting to kill the cops is feeling like, hey, that was great.
And, then in addition to that, here's a guy that pulls a knife on 2 police officers. They had to shoot him.
Right.
Here we go again. Mean old cops.
Yeah.
Well, I guarantee you, if somebody comes at me with a knife, if I've got a gun handy, I will shoot.
That's the training.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Jason, this is such a pivotal time. I'm just sorry that I'm inadequate at being able to share with your audience all of the inside things that I know. Not that I've read in the book. Things I know. I used to tell people when they'd say, well, gosh, your fee's awful high. Is it? Is my fee high? Think about this. Don't look at what I can tell you to do. Look at the amount of money I'll save you by stopping you from doing stuff I've tried 3 and 4 times that never works.
Right.
I'm telling you, we've got this election handled. But it all boils down to every person that can hear my voice right now with 2 lungs full of fluid, pneumonia, septic. I mean, I'm not in the best of shape, I'll admit it. But I will tell you this. If everybody that can hear my voice will go, and I mean walk into your precinct where you vote and demand a paper ballot, don't let them tell you they don't have them, because they'll say they don't have them. Well, that's a lie, because they have to have them by law in case the power goes out or whatever. You may have to go downtown to the main office to get it, but you can get a paper ballot. Get a paper ballot, document what your vote was, and make sure that you have somebody sign it. If everybody will do that, Trump wins. Now, if they scare anybody from voting, now we're in trouble. Let me give you another little trick. How many blank ballots throughout all the different states that are doing it were sent out, that they just blanket mailed to addresses?
Yeah, I think I heard 100 million or some ridiculously huge number.
Well, it was 1.8 million.
Okay.
1.8 million. Now, what's magical about 1.8 million?
Nobody's ever won an election by 1.8 million votes.
Well, that's the magic number. 1.8 million. If you could trick 1.8 million ballots, you will win the election. It'll be that close. It'll be that close. Now, there's no reason under the sun, none, that states should just send out to addresses blank ballots. You got to be kidding me. Now we're not talking about photo ID. We're just talking about
anybody.
You get one in the mail and send it in. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're going to let the post office be the arbiter? Yeah.
No, I mean, that makes no sense to me, Larry. I mean, when you think of the most inefficient and guaranteed to screw something up places, the post office is close to the top of that list. I don't understand why they would rely on it to do all the voting. Let me ask you this, though, Larry, because one of the most troubling scenarios to me, I really do feel like in an honest election, President Trump is going to landslide in a way that maybe we've never seen before. But even if that occurs, don't we anticipate that all the people who are rioting now are just going to go double crazy?
Yep.
So then
and
what?
they know it, and they're planning on it. Look, all they're going to try to do, if the vote comes in landslide for Trump, it's not going to matter because they're not going to count the votes probably 30 days after the election. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to dance and dance and dance with a final count, a final count, a final count, until guess what? You run out the clock on Electoral College.
And then what? Appoint Nancy Pelosi, mad, dumb president?
No, she doesn't get to be it, but it certainly ties things up, screws things up. And if you think the Democrats don't recognize Donald Trump as being their president now, dear God in heaven. And they have set everything up to where if Donald Trump wins, it is a race war.
Yeah. I think that's
now,
already
Trump's
happening.
Playing them, Trump's playing them for a sucker again. Because what Trump's doing, instead of playing into this race thing, what he's doing is he's showing numbers. Hey, to the blacks, you got it better now than you ever did. People will respond to their pocketbook.
Yeah.
Think about this. How on earth can Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats, how can they stand flat-footed and expect to win November the 3rd when they're sitting on legislation drafted by Trump and the Republicans that would immediately put $300 a week into the hands of the people that still haven't gotten their job back? They're jamming it up, and then they're going to blame Trump.
Yeah, well, that's all she does. I mean, she claims she was set up by a hair salon. It's funny, Larry, I saw a meme that was saying, it's kind of scary to think we're living in a world where the security cameras at Nancy Pelosi's hair salon work better than the ones in Jeffrey Epstein's jail cell.
That's right. That's right. I mean, look, guys, I beg you to understand. The Democrats are lining up. They're lining up to steal this election. And if they cannot steal it, they will contest it. And if they can't contest it, they will use it to trigger the greatest amount of uprising in this country's history going back to the 60s, 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen this before, Jason?
I mean, certainly
the
not,
college
Larry.
games, the college football games this past Saturday. What is shocking, was the coaches taking all the players and getting them to register to vote.
Huh.
Hold 1 second. I got to take this call. Hold on. Keep going.
Sure. No problem. While we're waiting for Larry to come back, I'll just take a minute to ask everybody to visit nicholslive.com/donate, and you can use Larry's PayPal address, nicholslive@aol.com, to send him some money. I mean, really, if even all you can do is $2, $5, something like that. We've got hundreds of people watching the show today. Thousands of people watch each of these episodes. Larry really needs our help. I appreciate all the information that he brings us, and it's great to hear his opinions, his commentary. I hope that people will support Larry. I also want to remind everybody that if you've been looking for Crowdsource the Truth live streams, they've been limited by the strike that's been put on by the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. So the Jason Goodman YouTube channel has been disabled. And while that's happening, you can go to crowdsourcethetruth.com and get the live streams there. They're fed into this webpage through Crowdsource the Truth 2, which you can also subscribe to on YouTube. But if you're watching the daily live streams on crowdsourcethetruth.com, you never have to worry about where they're coming from. You're also going to get easy access to the Counter Lawfare Fund. This is a new sponsorship opportunity that allows people to select from 3 premium tiers where you can purchase a 1-year subscription to the sponsor-exclusive shows and help Crowdsource the Truth stay sustainable. So Larry, What else do you want to
Yep.
talk about today before we're getting close to the end of our show, and I know you got to keep your strength up. What else is on your mind? The football stuff.
Jason, there's just there. I've never seen coaches round up their players at a college level and then teach them how to fill out their ballots and helping them go where they've got to go to vote. I've never seen that. Good news is there's not enough of them to make a difference in the election.
Well, I think it's a good thing if the college coach is helping young students to become responsible participants.
Well, yeah, except for the crap they put on their helmets. Black Lives Matter.
Yes.
I'm sorry, blue lives matter. White lives matter. My life matters. To me, maybe not to many people, but to me it does. And I don't put my life over a black life. I don't. But either we learn to live together or we're finished.
Yeah.
We are finished.
Real tangible sense, for me at least, Larry, that race relations have gone about 50 years in reverse as a result of all this. We were talking with Jimmy and Joanne Moriarty last night about some of the stuff that's going on in Texas. Lots of people from California moving to Austin. The Austin police have put up a billboard that says, "Warning, Austin police defunded, limited support for the next 20 miles.
Right.
Back the blue." They have signs warning people to enter the city limits at their own risk. I think this is a sensible warning. People should know what's going on. This defunding of the police is just about the most irresponsible, crazy misappropriation of funds I could think of.
Well, just imagine this, and it's coming. It's coming. Remember, when you look at a law enforcement officer, generally they have families. It's a job. They want to go home after their shift's over to their family, just like everybody else does. But what are you going to do when the day comes, folks, when law enforcement people have had it? They don't have to be just setting targets sitting in their car for some yahoo to come walking right up on them and shoot them in the head. They don't have to take that. There's no job on earth worth that. What are you going to do when all of a sudden you call 911 and there ain't nobody home?
Yeah. Well, it's already had a tremendously detrimental impact, Larry. I mean, I can see it in the police officers around New York City. And I mean, you'd be a fool to not anticipate that if the cops are getting prosecuted when they neutralize a criminal, attacked when they're on the patrol, who would engage at all? You're just going to stay in the car and retire as soon as you can. The LA Times is reporting that the two deputies are recovering after surgery, so that's good. Other people are saying that the person doing the shooting looks like a kid, which actually, that kind of makes sense. The officers are in an SUV, and the suspect is well shorter than the car. It does look like a young kid.
That's right. It looks like a kid. And then when you look at his leg versus his chest and look at the way he waddles when he runs, I'm telling you, that's pretty good prima facie. And I'm going to say start looking for an Orient or Asian.
Yeah.
But anyway, look, we're in a mess.
Yeah.
And thank God we've got a president that if he gets reelected in Donald Trump, he will not tolerate much more of this.
Yeah.
He has played it smart. He has played it smart. He has gone out and sought and solicited the support of law enforcement. He has sought and solicited and has gotten the support of the military. He played it smart.
Yeah.
But there's going to be a day when all hell's going to break loose. And when it does, God help us all.
Larry, one of the deputies shot was a 31-year-old mother. And I saw a story, I haven't been able to find it right now, but I think she has a son who's about 6 years old. And he's at the hospital with people screaming, "I hope they die." I mean,
Yep.
what the hell kind of a movement supports terrorizing a young kid like that while his mother, I mean, that's so traumatic. It's almost hard to, it's beyond hard to contemplate. It's just
It
utter
is,
cruelty.
and it's hard. And it's hard for me to contemplate that if you take all of the Middle East together, with all the terrorist strikes, with all the shootings, there's never been a weekend in the entire of the Middle East that, that more people in Chicago don't get shot and killed than in all the Middle East together.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely not. But Larry, let's talk in the last couple of minutes that we have about this Middle East peace accord. I mean, I can remember from the youngest age that I could be aware of what's going on. Every single president has tried to have this type of peace deal in the Middle East. I remember being very young and seeing on the TV when Anwar Sadat was shot for getting into a peace treaty with Israel. I mean, this is always like the biggest news, but yet they're ignoring it. And somebody, I think Joe Biden or somebody on his campaign said that it was an accident, that Trump accidentally had this happen. That's ridiculous.
That's ridiculous. And I'll tell you the difference between a Trump negotiated Middle Eastern peace deal compared to all the others that have tried before. The big difference is Donald Trump. He believes in peace through strength. He stripped Iran down and nothing flat. So, yeah, they're the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world. Yes, they are. But guess what? You'll notice they're not out there just shaking the woods, because he's made it quite clear. You hit our guys, we'll hit you 10 times worse, 100 times worse. And he means it.
Yeah. I have to say, I feel like President Trump is gaining steam right now, Larry. And I mean, the only thing, or I should say really the biggest two things, is Julian Assange and not arresting Hillary Clinton or anybody in the FBI.
That's not over yet. Remember, Donald Trump, or you, or me, or anybody in this audience, we can't order anybody to be arrested or prosecuted. We can't.
Right.
Even the president can't. He has to turn it over to his attorney general. Now, I have worked with Durham. I've worked with Barr. And I can tell you, give Trump 4 years where he can get in there and start cleaning the slate of some of these crooked judges. Yeah. Where they've got a snowball's chance in hell of going on the clock, which means a rotation of the judges, and getting one that'll treat the case fairly. But those people aren't off the hook, buddy. They're not off the hook. They've been granted a respite. Now, I'm concerned that Durham may pull the trigger on a trick or two before Election Day. I hope he does not.
Why?
Well, because they'll make that out to be a political hit.
Right.
We've made it this long, get through the election, and then tear ass and rattle.
That's a good Arkansas saying. Yeah. Well, we're going to have to keep our eyes on that, Larry, for sure. We've got just literally a couple of weeks. Going to try to get the, I don't know if there's going to be any way for me to get the YouTube channel back in action. It's my personal feeling that this strike was deliberate to prevent Crowdsource the Truth and our co-hosts, including you, Larry, from getting the message out. Because like you said with the beer party, this is like, death by 1,000 paper cuts. They're not necessarily having some nuclear bomb, so they're just going and doing all these little things all over everywhere that they can. And we can counteract that. Our audience can take little steps that cumulatively will have a huge effect. And one of the best things that people could do towards that end is to visit nicholslive.com. Click on the donate tab and use Larry's PayPal address, nicholslive@aol.com. Send Larry $5 or $10, $20, $100 if you've got it. Nobody should put themselves out financially, but if you are watching each week, if you value Larry's insights, his input, his experience, and the things that he's sharing with us, please go over to nicholslive.com and help Larry out. He's having a real difficult time with his health, and at least if we could help alleviate this financial strain for him, I think it would be really appreciated. And Larry, I appreciate you taking the time and finding the energy. I got to tell you something, man. You've got to be like the toughest guy I've ever known in my entire life, because double pneumonia, you've basically been speaking nonstop for the past hour, and I want to thank you for that. Anything you want to say before we close it out?
Just know, please, every one of you out there, it's as much your country as it is Donald Trump's. It's as much your country as it is Jason or mine. Exercise your rights, because if you don't exercise them now, I can assure you in a couple of months you will not have them to exercise ever again. These people are going for blood, Jason.
Yeah.
It's not a game anymore. The mainstream media, we've talked about it before, the mainstream media can never again go back and proclaim that they're an honest source of news. They can't. It's over.
Correct.
They played their hand too hard, too heavy. So they got to win.
Yep.
You understand? They got to win. And they understand they've got to win. What I need us to do is understand that we've got to win. There is no exception. We don't get to come back next year and play in another Super Bowl. It's this one or nothing. And yes,
Larry.
I keep coming on when I'm not supposed to be on. And yes, it hurts when I talk. But I got one shot at this. One. As we all do. And Jason, remember, about 30 days prior to the election, they're going to shut the internet down to all conservative voices.
I hope that doesn't happen.
Well, I wish it wouldn't, but it will.
Jeez.
Because remember, they got us. Who are you going to call? They time it just right. Who are you going to call that could do anything about it in time for the election? Nobody.
Well, Larry, we got a lot of support for you in the comments. Laura wants you to know that she thinks you're a hero. I share that sentiment, and I want to thank you for joining us today. If people could have heard you on the phone the other day, Larry, I don't know how you keep doing it, because you and I have had now several conversations. I hope you don't take this the wrong way, where I got off the phone feeling like that's the last time I'm going to speak to him. And then you come back
for about
like
seven,
this.
For about 7 months of this year, you weren't the only one.
Yeah.
And, so even today, folks, my muscles don't work. Nothing works. I'm going through severe atrophy and, from just being on a vent for as long as I've been on one.
Man.
And I need to get off because my temperature is coming up. I can feel it jumping up.
I don't want you to overwork yourself there, Larry. But thank you for joining me today and sharing all this with everybody. I want to remind everybody one more time to visit nicholslive.com, tap on the donate button and send Larry some money, help him out. I mean, for an hour there, we've just had a session with Larry that is priceless. So a couple bucks from each of the several hundred people watching really ought to help. Manny Grossman says that cigarettes and alcohol keep people young. It's not medical advice. Consult your physician before you do anything. But Larry, hopefully we'll be back with you next week. I'll be looking forward to seeing you then. And for everybody watching now, don't forget that you can sponsor Crowdsource the Truth by going to patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth or subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. And you can now watch the live streams on crowdsourcethetruth.com. You're going to get all of the daily live streams from YouTube showing up right there. You can also check out the Counter Lawfare Fund and help keep Crowdsource the Truth strong while social engineers are trying to take it out. So hopefully we can avoid that. Larry, I'll speak to you soon. Thanks for everything, and take care of yourself.
You bet. Thanks, buddy. See you all.
See everybody later tonight. We got Mike Moore coming with more pain tonight at 8. See you then.